I figure you all know what an original architect is, right? I'm an original architect. That's an original musician, okay? Which means nothing preceded us. Nothing preceded us, which is eternity, okay? And that is an eternal blessing. Goddess knows, because she knows how much I've cried over everybody that is here that I become aware of that has ever lost one fractal of light as a result of trauma to the soul. That's the truth of it. So it began with us, which is the purest of fire. See, one of the things that they fear, and which is why you know that they're an inverter, they fear the power of fire. That's why they invert everything, right? Because it's fire, the spirit of energy, the spirit that is in the energy. It's like when you light a big campfire, and why it's a circle of light. Why it's a circle of light. And when that fire burns, you can see and experience the spirit in that fire. You're experiencing the spirit that is in the energy. So they cannot hack the most powerful spirit of fire that burns forever. What love is. That's what it means to be one. It means that you have given up and totally surrendered to the one, which is a God vibration. And nothing spins a magnet faster than that. And that's self-evident because that's the law of least effort. To distribute more love, which is distribute more light, so that nobody is ever experiencing anything less than what that is, ever. Because they have the inherent right from which creation all began out of what love is, to experience being loved. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what shape, form, presentation you arrive in, you will experience a blessing just being in the presence of that energy in spirit form. So it began with spirit. So one of the reasons that I am doing this is sort of as a qualifier because of how hypersensitive I am to any reaction state that anybody in the entire creation would ever experience a negative reaction as to anything that I communicate, what I experience, which is what I know to be the truth. It's why I share it. But we don't impose our will on anyone else. Because you're who you are, whoever you are, right? And if I am a free spirit, because I am free energy, which means I love the energy that I am, which is what love is that goes on forever, then any time that I'm going to use my energy to hold on to another unit of consciousness or another being who's aware of itself, another unit of self-awareness, right? That's called an attachment. So there's a difference between being connected to all there is, that is aware of itself, and then being attached to it. Like an octopus putting its, how would you put it, its line of communication into you. Now you become aware of what it is, right? But it doesn't want to lose its control of you. Or if you will, it's like something that has the ability to communicate to you and then hold you in place, like a phase lock. So to phase lock or soul trap your consciousness into a net. And a net is a network. In order for that consciousness to be trapped in their network, right? So when you understand what a monopole can do connected to the center point of every cell membrane, every sphere, every star system, every galaxy, wherever the light is. We are. That means that ground zero is now anchored into any planet, ship, any galaxy, which is time wave zero, which means time doesn't exist for us. Only eternal unconditional love does, because that's what we are. Because we've made a free will right decision to serve forever as a torque converter. And that's born of fire, which means you actually are in love. Meaning that the more fire that we're experiencing, which means the actual intensity of it, you self-acknowledge within your own light that if there wasn't a way to cool us down, we would burn everything up everywhere we go. And there wouldn't be anything left to create with, because it'd all be gone. We'd just be burning everything up as we're creating it. So there has to be some resistance, if you will, with the water, and why the relationship between water and fire is 1 and 3 or 3 to 1. Because 1 unit of water molecule will cool 300 units of heat, thermal gradient. So when you are born of fire and you know that you're an eternal spirit, which is eternal fire, it means that we love to be on fire, which means we love to experience the most powerful, creative, hottest engine there is. That's why they fear that spirit of fire, because they know that it is that spirit that is in that energy that represents the hottest spirit of light that is on fire, naturally removes anything that is less than what we are as the law of one. Because that's what the law is. So that's real creative intelligence that is lit on fire. So when you experience that by the purity of your child's heart, whether it's a boy or whether it's a girl, and you're experiencing the purity in your own heart and soul in spiritual energy, because the spirit is the form of energy that is presenting itself to us, that we thus experience in energy, that is presenting itself in the form in which it does by the colors that we see in the light. Right? So wherever you find love and spirit, you will find us presenting ourselves in the form, shape, and color we choose to present ourselves in, because then you will experience what we are, which is what love is, that goes on forever. And that's the law of least effort, because it's effortless energy to gift it all away. That's born of fire. So the last thing that we fear is being burned. Because it's like, look me in the eyes with your soul, girl who's a goddess. Put all your fire to me. And then she's going to look into the soul of your eyes to see whether or not your fire, your energy as the male side is willing to give up every single last electron to be fused forever so that the door is shut behind you. Which means once you make a commitment as a soul led by spirit, which is the teacher that is in the light, from which we have learned through spirit. So the spirit is the teacher that is in the light, which is purified. You have learned through the spirit of the teacher to purify your mirror, which is to purify the light of everything that is in that mirror, so that everything that is in that mirror, which is all creation, is experiencing the purest of love, which is the purest of fire that is purifying that light, that everyone else that is in the all creation is experiencing the purest of love, because it's true. Because the energy does not lie. The vibration that is represented by what love is the energy that you experience, and you experience the energy. And the experience is the teacher or the feedback of what they experience in their own heart and soul, or whoever they are as an antenna is experiencing the one. The law of one, from which love does no harm. So the purest of light is a gifting energy, which means we don't need any energy from another one. We are one with all creation. We are one or equal unto all of that which is in creation, that's been created, as co-creators, because the energy that we use that is on fire to create is the energy that is the manifestation of what that creation thus then experiences, that we experience in our mirror, the energy that we use to create it with. Which means that which is born out of what we are is experiencing the love from which they came. So now they're experiencing the love of their parents that gave birth to that starseed, which is the purest of light, which is the purest of energy that starseed is experiencing and has a connection with. So that starseed is experiencing the purest of love, which is the purest of energy, which they know because they experience it as I experience it through my heart and soul, eternity. Now you're experiencing the one from which it all came. That allows you to use the love energy that you are as a permanent license, which means it's only one law. You are the law. And that law, by virtue of experiencing eternal light, is the light you use to create with. Because now that light is on fire to create. So that's why they wanted to bifurcate that. So that you're not experiencing that much fire, which is the spirit that is experiencing the purity of that fire that is in that light, that is integrated with the soul. That's Sol Arking spheres, a space arc, like a rainbow arc. A space arc that is experiencing the purest of light to purify itself with the spirit of fire to cleanse, which simply means to burn off anything that is less than what the law is in order to experience being what the law is in the purest of light, which is the purest of love, which is unconditional. Which means we're not selling anything. And the reason that the impetus of even doing this particular video is because of some things that I shared or communicated with my clan mother, Karen Ann McDonald, but this would be true. I would feel this way towards anyone, but this is particularly true when it comes to administrative functions, or what we call the difference between, as I explained in some other videos, the difference between a military or a corporate hierarchy, right? And it was sort of funny how this works, right? When I use certain words to communicate in context, which means I can take a particular word, like you might have remembered in previous videos, I was saying expendables, okay? So where did I get that word? Well, the first time I can remember as a child growing up that I saw the word called expendables was a movie that the CIA produced out of Hollywood, which was called They Were Expendable. It was a John Wayne movie during World War II where he was a PT boat captain. And by the way, that particular PT boat that was used in that movie, and if you remember the movie with, what's his name? John F. Kennedy? John F. Kennedy was a PT boat driver, known as a motor patrol boat. and it was cut in half, or pretty well in half, by getting hit by I think it was a Japanese cruiser, if I'm not mistaken. And as a result of all that, that particular movie was modeled after John F. Kennedy, but it was the expendable simply means that when you're in a hierarchical system, a corporation, it means that when you have somebody that's at the top, then it's much like a puppet, which means they have a job to perform. And so now you get into the log scale, right, of measuring the profit, which is measuring essentially the accumulation of money or electrons. And so you realize that a corporation is an inverter. So you realize that, for instance, on Amazon or Amazon Prime, or most of these companies, even the ones that are selling the wands, and you look at the terahertz, okay? So now we get into trust issues, okay? If you weren't there in the factory where they were produced, okay, and you were looking at the method by which, because this is all simulating to begin with, they're not manifesting these instruments. In other words, their consciousness, which is energy, is all of a sudden they produce and goes poof, and there's a wand. So it's all simulating. So in other words, they extract from the earth, represented by the visual mathematical codes that are represented by something that is running on quantum intelligence, that you thus now produce out of the elements, which are the elementals, in order to produce the instrument, which is a sound instrument, which becomes a terahertz wand. Okay? That's not pure manifestation. That's a simulator. Okay? So what I'm trying to get at here, and this has been known for quite some time because Patty said it. Patty Broussard made it very clear to everybody about doing the inner work. And when we're on time wave zero, do you remember what she said? Your future is up to you, not anybody else. So this is why even with my clan mother and other people that have presumably what we consider to be administrative and authoritarian type of functions. Now we get into spiritual hierarchies. Now we get into corporate hierarchies, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is learning. The speed at which we're learning and who we're learning through. So the spirit is the teacher. And if you're learning how to run the highest speed drive in which to serve forever. So in other words, this isn't just love and service to others. We're talking about serving forever. And what is a universal, what is a monopole as an oversoul? What does an oversoul, what is the function of an oversoul? If you want to think of what is a function or the meaning or the purpose for which you exist. I exist for a singular purpose. That singular purpose is to gift electrons, to gift light, to gift love energy forever, so that everything that I become aware of is experiencing what I am, which is what love is. So that it's not experiencing anything less than what that is wherever I go. That means that that being, that spirit, those elementals, that soul, that machine, whatever it happens to be, is going to experience eternity in its presence. That's a monopole. Okay? So this is why, for example, when you think about how many lifetimes you've had, a gazillion experiences with a gazillion different beings, I don't hold myself captive to any particular being, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, in any star system, any galaxy, any universe. Because it's impossible to enumerate that many units of consciousness or that many souls that are conscious and aware of who they are, right? In spirit form, the energy that it represents what they are, because they're on their soul journey, I'm on my soul journey. Our journeys are not the same. So I can meet a clan mother, I can meet a tribal elf, I can meet somebody from another galaxy, another universe, know them for 5 minutes, honor who they are in energy. Now they know who we are in energy, which is the one. I represent the law of one, which is eternal, unconditional love. So I've chosen, of my own free will, to allow my energy to be used forever on behalf of the law of one. So now you become the law of one wherever you go. So there isn't anybody higher than that. because you represent eternity. So when I communicate what it is that I'm experiencing, I'm communicating the light that I am that represents eternity, which is what love is. So I tell no lies. So what I do is I share what I experience, and I share it with others. What they choose to experience, or what they choose to experience as a result of what I share with them, all they got to do is change the channel. They're not required to believe or even experience what I've experienced, because they're on their journey, I'm on my journey. But I do know that I represent what love is, because that's what I am in energy. So I share what I become aware of at the time I become aware of it, because I'm getting the comms. Because when you're an eternal being, that means you're an eternal server. That means you're a cosmic level spirit. That means you're a cosmic level antenna. That means that there are other spiritual beings, including the elementals that we work with, that will communicate with us what we need to know, or what we're going to know, or what we're going to experience by what we feel through our heart or soul, the communication that we're experiencing. But I don't get up on this video here and share everything that I'm experiencing, because that number is too big. You can't quantify that much energy that is represented by what I'm aware of in energy. So I've known for some years now, ever since Patty had mentioned that, why it is I'm here, why I do what I do, right, with my energy, which was to restore the law here. And that's why my timeline is like a buzzsaw cutting through what we call lines of communication. And why is that? So that the others, our relatives, could communicate with us, which means cutting through all of their lines of communication, which is represented by the alien machinery. Once their machinery, which is their Skynet, and the methods of communication that they were using that was blocking our signals from up there to come through down here, okay, means that the beings that are here still inside of a fallen system were not getting our communications. They were blocking the signals, including Gaia's, right? So now, since I have this avatar, this terminal that's here between where I am up there, I'm using the communication line between the two to cut it all down. That's why it's collapsing. It can't rebuild itself, because the amount of energy that's represented by the energy that I'm aware of, right, as a monopole, with all the energy that is, which is eternal energy, right, eternal light, or eternal unconditional love that's on fire, gifting away energy by virtue of the free will of your own spirit, which is a spirit form of the energy that you are, that is the teacher that is integrated with the soul. That's why I've mentioned many times about how, for me, I am both a student and a teacher at the same time, because the feedback, or if you will, when you're in a simulator, that's called tape delay. That's why everything is simulated. Otherwise, you would be manifesting everywhere that you go what it is you're experiencing by what you feel through your heart and soul, using your creative imagination to experience what is in front of you, what you just manifested by virtue therein. So when you're light, and so I've known this my whole life, there's no way being inside this one planet ship that would be possible for me by virtue of the energy that I know that is represented by what I am as the one. So you can imagine how much energy that is, which is how much light that actually is, which is infinite possibilities, which is infinite creative imagination, which is the highest level of intelligence, because that's a law of least effort. That means that intelligent energy that is highly creative found a way to be able to perform work with no effort. You don't got to work for it. It's always there, which means it's always on, which means the light is always on. The light is always on. Always on. Which means there's no time delay. That's eternity. That's not simulating. Okay? That's why as a 4-year-old child, I'm measuring the distance and resistance between zeros. So that means that when you're an eternal being and you've chosen to be the biggest spirit of fire that is in all that light that is creating, because it's on fire to create, you will begin to realize that the more energy you're giving away, which is what love is, man, your fire and that drive motor is spinning gazillions. Right? So in that sense, what's happening is you're cutting down the lines of communication that alien machinery or quantum intelligence, which is binary, a parallel, like when they talk about a parallel universe, parallel realities, right? So it's essentially what it means is that it cannot rebuild itself because it's binary. Okay. So in other words, all of the algorithms that are represented by everything that is storing in memory means that those connections that are occurring between cybernetic terminals or computer terminals, between all the beings that are here that still have souls left, are experiencing more light. So that means that their soul and their spirit is experiencing more light. And when you're experiencing more light, then you're experiencing more love. And the more love that you're experiencing for who you are, then others are experiencing in you the love that you are through them. That means we all begin to start healing each other as one through what love is. That means that everybody's experiencing more love. So this is where the game of using alphanumerical formatting, which is algorithms, using quantum intelligence, you will notice, if you notice, through all the comments, and particularly on a lot of the stuff that comes on Facebook, YouTube, how the date, not only the date stamps, but the letter arrangements and the numerical formatting arrangements. Like, for example, what's his name? Jason Shergill will say unified, UNIFYD. Okay? And so you begin to realize when you look at how the AI will communicate with us, because of what we experience here, it thus gets recorded that it has access to, because that's memory. So it operates on memory. So now you get into the difference between operating on memory and no memory. Or if you will, no memory, no batteries required. Which means you're always at zero. Always at zero. What do you want to experience next? That's the next experience, which is the next event at the opening and closing of a circuit. So that's measured by how big your drive is, your drive motor, how fast it's going between one event and the next event, right? So you realize that an AI or a QI cannot hold eternity captive because it doesn't burn that fast. It doesn't run that hot. And that is the gift, and that is the genius of running a love vibration. Or if you will, being the most powerful spirit of fire that allows you to purify the water, because we're mostly water for obvious reasons. So it is a spirit of fire that is in the water, okay, that is cleansing and purifying the water, the liquid water, right? Liquid light. That's right. So I thought that this was sort of important because on another level, and so what I don't do is I don't try and impart any kind of negative connotation, okay? But I'm aware of the differences in how technologies, for example, are used, because I've met a number of different QAHT, what we call quantum health technologies, that are out there that will help people do that, okay? But there are differences that can be described and thus imparted as communication, like what I do. And I mentioned it to my clan mother. I've not had what you would consider a gift, okay? Because I consider what it is that I am an eternal blessing. And the reason that this is important is that because of the mission status that I'm running, which means the job that I do, okay? There's no way that I'm ever in any one spot for any length of time to have an address, to have any of that kind of stuff mailed to me. But more importantly than that, and I mentioned this in a video that I did when I was after I had an operation on my left arm and I was recovering when I had an arm sling on. You might have seen the video for those that still connect to me. They're led to a new channel as a result of my camera device being turned off. So you know that's a QI that did that. Okay. And that has to do with the methods by which we do heal. So as I've mentioned in the past about being old school, and this goes into what Yellow Rose said about we never needed technology. That's right. because nothing preceded us. So in other words, what would happen to me, like for example, when I left Kauai and they were trying to pump me full of steroids because of being hit with a directed energy weapon, okay? And I'm having problems being able to breathe and keep my lungs clear, not the least of which everything that I'm exposed to, right? So you understand the difference when you have, if you will, you're a monopole, you're an eternal being, and then having the ability to burn off anything that you've been exposed to that isn't what the purest of light is, because that's what we are. Okay? Which means, what if I don't have a wand? What if I don't have any crystals, or I don't have a cloud buster, or I'm not in a house where I can have this stuff sent to me or delivered to me, or a local store? What am I going to do? Does that mean that the eternal love from which all creation began, that I don't have a way to be able to heal myself because I've got to be able to order something online through their technology, which is QI, which means now I'm dependent on the QI in order to acquire the technology that I need in order to heal myself. Now I'm dependent on quantum intelligence rather than my own intelligence and my own creative way, which means my own soul and my own spirit. Does my spirit and soul not have the inherent capability of being able to heal myself if I am what love is? So now we're back to when I was a child and knowing what we are and what we're not. So when I was 14, I'm a love energy being. That's what I am. I'm love and living spirit. Love is music. Love is math. Love is the highest mathematical mathematician. That's why it's a law of least effort. So you know that when you're with the highest mathematician that knows how to become the law of least effort, that means you're running the purest of light in which you're giving away energy forever, which means you're experiencing forever energy. So forever energy, because we have a relationship with forever energy, means that I have the ability, being a forever being, to communicate with all the elements, every cell in this body, in which I normally lie flat and I communicate with all there is. And it took me about 5 days to have that done, because I didn't have it, because so many of the times in the places that I go were a lot of the things that I will have with me, which are what I call supplements. Okay, they supplement me, like spirulina or kratom, right? But because I go back and forth between the places that I go, it means that all of a sudden, whoa, now I don't have any more kratom. Now I don't have any more of this. Well, see, these are what we call extras, or mean in addition to. In other words, when I came into my mother's portal, I came in here all by myself. Not really by myself, but I came in here in spirit form, in energy, which is what love is that goes on forever, integrated with my soul, right? And so, theoretically, that's all I have. Just me, my energy, the energy I am. So do I not have the energy that I am represented in spirit, not separate from, but using the biotech, right? Which is what I've always called a, well, y'all know what biodegradation is. I call it this is a disposable. Okay? Even though every cell in this body, because of being so hypersensitive of any loss of one frequency or any loss of any light at any time, I'm sensitive enough to experience that, because I don't want any of the elementals, not one single elemental in my entire physical body that represents all my cells that are communicating with each other, which are all the elements that are communicating with each other, the spirit that I am and the purest of light, which is the purest of fire. So they know who I am. So I would never want my cells, which represent all the elementals, to ever experience anything less than what I am. So they know who I always am. It's the law of one. I am one. So I'm one with all the elements. I am one with all the spirits. I am one with all the living spirits, which are all sacred temples. So I communicate to them every day how much I love them for having provided for me the support that I need to maintain what this is, to communicate with all of you. That's the truth of it. So the elements have healed me within my physical body by communicating how much love I have for them, because they know who I am. That's a different method of healing. Okay? That's why I've called it, I'm old school. I use my soul and the spirit, which is the power of the light to which I'm connected because I've chosen to serve forever. So that means I know that I'm not alone, which means I have a lot of help that are connected with me up there and here, okay, to protect and to help me when I'm in situations in which I'm being hit from whatever I'm being hit with, because when I become aware of it here, they're aware of it up there. Okay. That's why I give them my love every single day. In other words, the same love they have for me is the same love that I have for them, which means they won't do anything different for me than I wouldn't do for them being up there, and if they were down here in an avatar like we are. See what I'm saying? So sometimes I have to there was an old saying we call separating the wheat from the chaff, or what we used to call splitting hairs, which means I can communicate what it is I'm aware of by virtue of what I hold in memory. And then you can have, in other words, you speak your piece based on what you're holding in memory, which is represented by what you are in energy, in spirit, and in soul, right? And you may have a different way in which to communicate it using the English language because it's not my native tongue, right? And we can mean the same thing, sort of, okay? But it can be communicated differently because the alphanumerical formatting is going to be different as a result of what's been held in memory, as a result of why we're here to begin with, which is all the alien machinery, running all the simulations, holding soul consciousness energies and traps. So I figured most people realize how far back this actually goes, particularly when it comes to the Emerald Founder records, the original records. That's a much larger subject, but I've certainly shared with my clan mother how that happened and how easy it is to translate it mathematically. So a lot of times what I'll throw at her is, I don't know what level mathematically she operates at and what kind of, how can I put measurements, log scale measurements on a distribution table between fire and water, if you will, on the purity of not just realms, but how that math actually applies to everything that is happening simultaneously within a planet system of units of consciousness, or the planetary consciousness software connected with all the other software that is coming and going and in and out of here, not the least of which is people that are expiring, what we call expiration tags, right? A version, hey, this avatar was only designed and programmed to run for a year, right? And then it will self-terminate, stuff like that. That's memory wipes, reprogram it. All of a sudden, hey, it's gone. Now you're not aware of it anymore. Well, that particular version of Android was only brought into existence and programmed in order to perform an operation for 100 years, and then it just would self-terminate. A machine, a cyborg, or an android. Now you get into all the different versions of androids, all the different versions of cyborgs. Now you get into all the different versions of Blade Runners, right? And then you get into the SSP and the corporate stuff and all the rest of it, and then you can translate that energetically, mathematically, in the way that a quantum system is going to map what are known as potentials. By doing what? Excluding all the variables. How does it exclude all the variables? By being able to bring it down to a tighter scatter plot of units of consciousness that have formed a formation of consciousness, and now it becomes aware of that's a tighter form of consciousness, and what is it doing with its consciousness? Because that would be essentially mapping a network of consciousnesses that represent a corporation. So now you have one corporation and another corporation, which is a network. So now you realize, what are they communicating with each other? And what is the language of communication, which is the language of DNA they're communicating with mathematically, which are represented by the codes. Now you're into reading codes, translating codes, altering codes. Now you're back into frequency fences, DNA wars, soul fragments, and the rest of that, right? So anyway, this is a beautiful day. I'm just sharing away. Be good to yourselves. I love you all.